Hi there. You're listening to A Founder's Life, and I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. My guests and myself share our entrepreneurial journey and our methods for a balanced life. I'm joined here today by Bruce Lipian. Bruce, thank you for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am 66 and I have in the field of private equity, which means investing, largely acquiring companies, uh, supporting backable management. Uh, uh, and I really am excited about this, Leo, because the whole concept about, balancing life and business and so forth is something I see all too little of. And yet the rewards of being able to do that are amazing, and actually flattered that I would be one of those people you would reach out to. So thank you. Looking forward to it.
Me too. Thank you for joining. So, talk about your journey and what got you. So, you said you're now doing private equity. What was your journey that got you to where you are now? Although you've actually been doing this quite a while now.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a deliberate journey. That's for sure. When I graduated from University of Washington in 81, and I did not know what I wanted to do. And so I decided to apply to several business schools, even though it was a long shot because you have to have years of experience uh, to get into these programs. And I ended up getting into several of them. I chose Wharton to get my MBA. And I remember telling my parents that if they're not taking people, it's really exceptional if you're that young and they take you, and they're taking me. God only knows what condition the country's going to be in, 20 years from now. And look at us, 30 years from now. But in any event, after Wharton, I went into banking for 5 years. And I did. After I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got my MBA because I was a professional student still. I'd gone from uh, undergraduate to graduate school, and I still wasn't ready to set the world on fire. So I thought, well, also because I had so little experience, my options were limited, even though I went to a school like Wharton. So I looked at banking, I looked at accounting, because I still wanted to understand, learn more about a lot of different businesses. I also wanted to go into a program where they would teach me. I wasn't one of those who was ready to just set the world on fire. The longer I could go before I had to worry about that, the better. And it came down to accounting or banking. And the reason I chose banking was, if you are a lender, um, the key thing to being a good lender is getting paid back. And to understand whether you're going to get paid back, you've got to understand what makes a business viable. And so I really like the idea that that type of discipline or knowledge uh, would enable me to still uh, uh, decide what I want to do. I'd also see a lot of different businesses. So I went into lending, was a lender for 5 years, and I loved it. I didn't expect to fall in love with it. And then I got a call out of left field that a private equity firm named Kelso, which is one of the largest in the country, was looking for an associate at their West Coast office, and somebody who knew them knew me. The funny thing about this was I knew I couldn't get that job. I didn't have any chance getting that job. I didn't know anybody in the field. I hadn't ever done any of these buyouts before. And I hadn't done anything to package myself for that. And this is one of those things that people would kill to get in. So when I got the call from the recruiter, I didn't look at it as an interview. I thought, it'd be nice to meet these people. It's almost like going to the zoo and seeing the private equity people behind, the bar. So I went down with the littlest expectation that anything would come of it other than it would be fun. And I just connected with these folks. And I remember, and I was also so happy where I was at. I kept telling them, God, things are going great and this and that. Long story short, I'm very upset with myself driving home because I didn't try and sell myself. Gosh, these were nice people. They seemed to like me. And the next day I get a call back and they go, the recruiter says, I do not know what you did yesterday, but these guys loved you. And I learned one of the most important life lessons: be yourself. If I had thought I had any chance, Leo, of them wanting me, I wouldn't have been me, because who would want me? I would have tried to puff myself up. And then I was lucky enough to join a firm that valued me as I am. And I've been in private equity for 30 years. And I was with them for 4 years. And then myself and two of the partners went off on our own. And we ended up raising our own fund. We raised a $60 million fund. This is in 95. And then after that fund was invested and exited, myself and one of the partners started doing deals on a standalone basis. And that's the business model we have today. As a category, we're called independent sponsors, which simply means we raise capital on a deal-by-deal basis rather than having a fund. And over the last 15 years, that approach to private equity has really blossomed. And again, unexpectedly, I consider one of the pioneers of this model, and was just honored. My partner and I were honored last year with a Lifetime Achievement Award in this category. And as you know, and I found myself being a thought leader, and really helping bring legitimacy and success to the category. So that's my journey.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know anyone who's been doing it as long, or certainly not as successfully and as long as you. And it's interesting. It's a model that before I moved to America 15 years ago, I'd never heard of. To all intensive purposes, my brother and I were doing independent sponsors because we, as a management team, did a number of businesses and brought separate investors into each business. So you've called that independent sponsor. Never heard of that. I don't even know if that term is used now in the UK. But it's, I mean, the beauty is you don't have the hassle of a fund. You don't have a hassle of the team that are needed if you have a fund, because you have to spend the money and therefore you have to, have a big team around it. So, I mean, I love the way you've done it. I think it's shown quite how long you've been doing it, and quite how successfully.
Let me give you back to you don't know what's called in the UK. When we started doing it, they called us fundless sponsors. Can you imagine a worse label if the only question they've got is, have you got the money to do this? And you're in a category called fundless. So part of the reason that there were like 6 of us who were like the first fundless that met at the first fundless sponsor conference. This is like 2005, 2006. And after the conference, we went to dinner, and the more liquored up we got, the more upset we got about this terrible name, fundless sponsor. And then somebody said, well, what do you think of independent? Well, that sounds pretty good. So one of the guys called the conference organizer, because it was the first one ever, to see if he was going to do it again. And he said, yeah, I think I'm onto something. And this guy said, would you do us a favor next year? Call it independent, not fundless. We would really appreciate that. And then this group of 6 were committed that anytime we talked, we'd say, stop calling us fundless. And to my utter amazement, it got changed to independent. So there's a piece of trivia.
I remember it being called fundless sponsor when I first moved in 2010. I was described as a fundless sponsor, but now you're right. That term wouldn't be used.
By the way,
and I see it's thanks to you.
Of those 6, since nobody remembers who came up with the word independent, we all take credit for it. Okay, so if anyway, yeah, there's a lot of but yeah, I had some influence in terms of that coming together. Yeah.
And so, tell me a little bit about family. What does family mean to you? How does it look?
Well, I got married in my 40s, and my wife was in her 40s, and first marriage for each of us. So we don't have kids. So when you talk just about immediate family, but I'm an amazing uncle, and you really sharpen those skills when you don't have kids. But I have family is very important to me, but in a, I'm not going to say a unique way, but my own life circumstances, um, were very impactful in my appreciation of family. When I was 13, I was orphaned, and I lost my mother and my father and my two sisters in a car accident that I was the sole survivor of. And so within weeks of that accident, I was now living in a new city, moved from Oakland to Seattle, and I was living with my mom's sister and her husband and her two kids. So you can imagine the circumstances I was under. Uh, it, what happened next could have gone any number of ways. And my mom and her sister were really, really close. And when they took me into their family, I was not only living with, my mom's sister, but her husband, my uncle, became a second dad. And I couldn't have been more blessed, even though this was a tragedy, to have a second father who I was his son. Their two kids were, uh, I was 13, their older daughter was 12, and then their youngest son was 8. Um, I'm my brother Gary, who was 8 at the time, and I was 13. He was actually happy about the whole thing. He didn't have an older brother, and one older brother came in, and he and I were together. Just he had taken me to a Billy Joel concert at Madison Square Garden as kind of a birthday gift. And I remember watching this and looking at him and going, "Oh my God, this is the 50th anniversary of us being brothers." And I put my arm around him. Man, I love you. And I said, to have a relationship like that after all those years, under those circumstances, is the epitome of family. If it's what family represents. And so, I'm very family oriented. And even though I had a tragedy occur early in my life, I feel really blessed to have the family and the life I've had.
Sounds like quite a journey, and lucky you found a family who you've truly become family. Well, you were family before, become family in every possible sense of the word. And what does health mean to you? How do you stay healthy, whether physically, mentally, nutrition, in any aspect?
Well, one of those things, if you're a survivor, there's almost some feel certain of immortality, if you will. That may sound a little weird, but I survived the sole survivor. And that, for so many years, led me to not be mindful of my health. And then about 5 years ago, I had a medical scare, and it had to do with my blood sugar being off the charts and having to, and really at risk of either heart attack or stroke or something like that. And my physician sent me to an endocrinologist. He got me on Ozempic. Before that was anything. But over the last, it was so interesting. This scare that I encountered, and I was probably 190 to 200 pounds then, and I'm about 150 now. But when I heard that, I took it as a blessing. That how lucky am I to find out that I have serious risk of health problems before any damage had occurred. It was a wake-up call. And when people say, "Well, Bruce, how did you do it?" I go, I started to care. I really took to heart the fact that I really had a chance to not get penalized for neglecting myself those years. And so today I work out with trainers 4 days a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And I've got one trainer I work out with 2 days and one trainer I work out with the other days. And then if that wasn't enough, about a month ago, I started doing Pilates on Wednesday. And kind of the whole theory of it was I've got a busy schedule, but even if I have to cancel one or two of those, I'm getting at least 3 workouts in a week. So, and then, once I just started, it became routine. It's like, okay, I can't have flexibility on that. I need to do it. And other things need to revolve around it. And, now my medical statistics they're still not exactly where they need to be, but they're in a really good spot. And people they take a second look when they haven't seen me for a few years to make sure it's me. And the one thing is really funny. I was uh, speaking at a conference in Miami last week, and my partner Drew, who saw the headshot I'd been using for the last 15 years, said, "Bruce, you don't look anything like that. Get a new headshot." And I did. And it was really cool, having, the new and improved up there. So, and I'll tell you a very interesting, unexpected thing with that is my wife's so much happier. She kind of quietly worried about not just how long I'm going to be around, but even worse, God, how much am I having to take care of this guy? If something happens. And so an unexpected benefit of that is just how much happier she is, which makes us both happier. And now people, the fact that anybody would ask me how I did it, knowing, how little I cared, is very flattering.
It's good to get the journey whilst you can. And I think, I talk a lot about health span versus lifespan. I have no interest in living to 150, but I want to be healthy until I die. And the kind of thing you're talking about is what allows you to have a good health span. It's interesting. I actually had my own health scare about 6 weeks ago now. Different kind of thing to yours, but I was in Portugal and my back started bothering me, and it started bothering me more and more. And I was training for a marathon, and my second marathon, and I was getting a little worried. And then I got to a state where standing up took effort. And actually, I then got to a state where it was really painful. And I saw a doctor, and went for MRIs and stuff, and was told, it'll be fine, take some pills, kind of thing, it'll get better. It didn't get better. And I've done some physical therapy, and I've seen another doctor now. And the great thing is, about something like this, and yes, I've got an issue in the lower back, but the doctor phrased it this way the other day. He said to me, I saw a spine surgeon. He said, I'll give you a B plus, maybe an A minus for a 51-year-old male. And what he was saying is, actually, it's not bad. Like, everyone's got degeneration in their discs. Yours is a little more than others, but it's actually not super bad. But what it said to me, I work out a lot. I'm a big runner. I'm a biker. I'm a triathlete. I weight lift quite a lot. I do boxing, but I skip leg day because for me, I'm like, well, I do my running. So I don't need to do leg day. I'm doing upper body in the gym. And what I've realized is I can't skip leg day because that supports the lower back. Do I need to start doing leg day?
Even though you hate, like I hate lunges, which is part of leg day, right?
Get a back issue and then have the doctor say to me, if you build up your core, but I've got my front core, but the back core, and your and as the Americans say, your butt. If you build up those muscles, that will support your lower back. And actually, he said, running and other things that put pressure on the lower back are actually shown that with the right core, it all gets completely dissipated and you're fine. So it was a nice wake up to say to me, okay, need to start doing leg day. He said, there's one piece of advice I could give. Go do Pilates. He said that to me is the number one thing to build. So as you said Pilates, I'm like, well, I'm actually starting that. So I'm going to be starting that in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to do probably just once a week because I do enough other stuff. But I'm going to start doing Pilates. And yeah, so I'm realizing now, start building those muscles at an area I don't really think about so that my back is supported. It's bothering me, not bad at the moment, just a low level. But number one, I'd like to get rid of the low level issue. And number two, I don't want it to be like it was 6 weeks ago. And I did run the marathon in the end, but even 3 days before the marathon, I was doubting whether I was going to run it.
Well, and also are you've got a really nice long runway before just aging will, um, you won't be able to control what it does, but with the number of years that you are doing this, at least that's for me. I'm so glad I started this like 5 or 6 years ago, because if I thought, okay, it's time now, I don't know if I could do it. But now that I'm doing it, um, I can't imagine not doing it. And so it's a mindset in terms of the commitment that rather than back then I had to do it, now I want to.
I get that. It's like any kind of fitness. I remember when my son, I work out a lot with my son, and now he works out a lot on his own when he's at college because he's got that into his, it's become part of his routine. But I remember saying to him when we first started out, at some point, you will want to do it. It becomes, to be blunt, exercise becomes addictive. And they talk about the positive endorphins created when you do it. I don't know why it's addictive, but exercise is addictive. It feels good to work out once
I will.
once you've got past that thing of it being a chore.
I didn't expect the following at all, but when I work out in the morning, I'm just less stressed throughout the day. Uh, I deal with a lot of situations that um, have a lot of pressure, and it's just like it's almost those days that I work out. It's like, go ahead, give it to me, because I'm just not as affected by the pressure, and I'm smarter, I'm funnier. I I and so that's an added benefit where if I know I got to tackle something, challenging later in the day, man, I want to work out that morning.
Yeah, actually, I woke up 4 o'clock this morning, a little earlier than I would have chosen to. And I'm lying in bed and I'm thinking, okay, I ain't going back to sleep. I've got a lot happening right now. And I'm like, well, maybe I can get a run in because I know that it's due to be raining later. And it was the dark, which isn't ideal running in the dark. But so I literally am laying in bed, actually, I open my phone. I'm like, I look at the weather app. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to rain for the next hour and a half, whereas it is due to be raining later. So I'm like, okay. So I popped at my desk for like 15 minutes, just caught up on some stuff because my team were all over the world. And then I went for a nice run. Perfect start to the day.
I'm not there yet, Leo. If I'm waking up that early, okay, I'm going back to sleep.
Yeah, part of the problem for me, apart from the fact that my mind just gets really busy and I've just got a lot going on at the moment, but on top of that, because my team are all over the world, I just know that I can get up and get stuff done. So, like, I know that if I wake up, I can call my business partner in Portugal. I can, speak to my team in the Philippines, in India. I just, so the problem is my mind gets busy because it knows I can be doing stuff. I'm a little better at sleeping in when I'm in Portugal. Still, I'm not a big sleeper, and I probably get up at 6 instead of like here. I get up around 5. Portugal, I probably get up at 6. I'm not great at sleeping in, but that extra bit is because I know, well, actually, I'm in that time zone instead of everyone isn't awake, so that's nice. And uh, what do you like to do for fun?
Um, yeah, I was thinking about that, and I like to do a lot of sedentary things for sure. Okay, so TVs, movies, um, foodie. Although I'm a little more thoughtful about what I'm eating or how much I'm eating these days. But I have also been blessed to have a lifetime of long relationships, and um, whether it's elementary school, high school, college, summer camp, um, work things, but I've been lucky enough to create certain traditions or do things that really build upon that, and it's almost like oxygen for me when I'm able to bring come together with lifelong friends, as well as making new friends. And this isn't about, I'm good at making friends. I'm talking about a connection where you just feel that bond. And so one of the things that I'm part of is an annual golf outing that next year is going to be our 29th year of this outing. And it started, in fact, the only year we didn't have it was the year that I got married, because all the guys were getting invited to my wedding. And it was the only date we could do. And I didn't have the balls to say to my wife, okay, we're not going to be able to do it on the day that we're supposed, because, I've got the golf outing to go
That's
to.
lucky, because otherwise you wouldn't be talking about your nice long marriage.
No, well, no kidding. The other thing, though, was I did weave it into the vows. Okay, so at least, it was a recognized outing. But this started because I helped a friend find a really good job, but I wasn't the only one. Several other of his friends went out of their way to introduce him to folks. And he was so appreciative. He invited me and these other friends at his expense to a golf weekend in Bend, Oregon. And he picked up the accommodations and the food and beverage, the golf, all of that. But the guys didn't know each other. Okay, in the same way, I've talked about all these relationships. He was the hub and we were the spokes. And he just had a feeling that this mix of guys would have good chemistry. And that was an understatement. We had an amazing time. And then that Sunday, as we're getting ready to part, he goes, look, first of all, thank you, all of you. I really appreciate it. He goes, man, this is so much better than I expected. You're all invited next year at my expense. Let's do it again. Now, if he hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have any of these relationships, because that would have been a one and done, but it was free, right? So we're all coming back. At which point he said, okay, that's the last time I'm paying for it. And we still give him crap that, not even a sleeve of balls. Like, but that bond between those guys grew into each of us inviting our own lifelong friends to join us. So when I talk about summer camp buddy, okay, he's one of the regulars now. When I talk about my graduate school buddy, and I know I'm going to see these guys at least once a year, because it's like an annual reunion that revolves around the golf. Last year, we had 20 guys, 28 years into this thing. And gosh, I feel so privileged and blessed to have those lifelong bonds. And I have that in other, aspects of my life. And so I get really passionate about making a point of being with those people who kind of stood the test of time. And just as a side, so when I turned 40, I decided I wanted to have a party, and I wanted to get together the people who had made this wonderful impact on my life. So, despite the circumstances early in life, my life has been blessed in terms of how many good people I've met. And then I thought, well, I want to bring these people together and have fun. And I thought, well, the one thing they have in common is me. And yet we're each different chapters in my life. And I said, well, what could be more fun than everybody making fun of me? So I threw my own roast, which I don't know that in mankind anybody's ever thrown their own roast. Who wants to subject themselves to ridicule? But I proved to be a very good target and full of enough material. We did it at Dave and Buster's, had about 100 people. But that's what I mean when I talk about, you talk about family, you talk about work, and you talk about friends. And when I think through, what comes first, the answer is none of them. They all do. And the right family and friend and work balance is each aspect of our life is recognizing that sometimes they're first, sometimes they're second, sometimes they're third. And they support you in your time of need. And it's that three-legged stool that's really beauty of life, I think.
I think you've really summarized sort of how I often describe balance, which is, yeah, it's that wave. Sometimes one's first, sometimes the other, but it's finding that overall balance. What is the line through the wave? But yes, it changes. It adjusts as needs be. Sometimes you've got to
And the
work really hard.
village understands. And as part of that village, I need to understand as well that I'm not always gonna be the priority. Uh, and that's what leads to these lifelong um, relationships that are irreplaceable.
Yeah. And I like to talk about pivotal moments. I mean, I think you've certainly talked about one major pivotal moment in your life, but are there any other pivotal moments, either on a personal or business perspective, that you'd like to share?
Okay, I wasn't ready for that one, but that's okay. Uh,
That's how I know who's actually been listening to my podcast.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I'm going to use a business one because after I got hired, I really questioned whether I was either worthy or qualified to step into this challenging and as well as in many ways cutthroat business category. It's very aggressive. You hear all kinds of stories. Um, and I did have an incredibly pivotal moment about 6 months into that, where I finally was on a deal where we'd signed a letter of intent. And so I was the sole associate supporting the partner. And we were negotiating the purchase agreement. And the guy on the other side of the table, who happened to be, I think, a VP of the seller, was really smart and really mean. And he knew how to really push the buttons of the partner. And I'm watching this and I'm just grateful that I get to be a spectator because I don't know how I'd ever be able to do what this guy on the other side of the table is doing. Even though there wasn't a big age difference, but he'd been doing this all these years and I wasn't as mean as him. And, uh, and so I just got to see two gladiators duke it out in the Coliseum and just enjoy myself. So there's one combative day where we wrap things up. I'm in the car with a partner and he goes, okay, from here on out, Bruce, you're going to handle negotiations with this guy. And I just think I couldn't have heard that right. Whoa. You want me to do the negotiate? I didn't even really spend time on the purchase agreement I'm like, me? And he goes, yeah. And there's two reasons for that. First, this guy is a jerk. I don't want to deal with him anymore. And I'm done with him. But that's not the key reason. I don't know if you've noticed, but if he asks us to make an accommodation, I'll think about it. And if I think it's reasonable, I'll make it. If I ask him to make an accommodation every time he leaves the room to call his boss, and then he comes back and says no, okay? I'm going to put one person with absolutely no authority across the table from another guy who's got no authority. And that way I'm going to stop giving. All right. Next day I called this guy up and I said, hey, I don't know if you heard, but from here on out, I'm handling the negotiations on our behalf. He goes, yeah, I heard about it. And I said, well, first of all, I'm new at this. Well, I just want to let you know, I've already learned a lot from you. And, you're really good at what you do. And he's kind of taken aback. He said, thanks. And I said, but unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to be able to get this deal done. He goes, why? I said, you have conducted yourself in such a combative and disrespectful manner. The reason I'm sitting here is because, Mike doesn't want to have anything to do with you anymore. And I said, for as smart as you are, if he is not willing to listen to anything you have to say, you're not going to get anything done. And I said, but I have an idea as to how maybe we can fix that. And I said, but I want to tell you before I mention it, Mike does not know I'm calling you, and Mike is never going to know I'm calling you. So this call is off the record. He goes, okay. I said, as soon as we're done with this call, I would advise you call Mike and apologize for how poorly you conducted yourself, and that you and I are going to be able to work together. But yeah, you didn't intend it for get to that point, that Bruce now is doing the negotiations on your behalf. And then there's silence because the guy's mean and I don't know what he's going to say. And he goes, Bruce, that is a great idea. Thank you. I'm going to do that. So 5 minutes later, Mike comes running down to my office. Bruce, you are not going to believe who called me. Who? He goes, the guy we've been negotiating with. I said, why would he call you? I'm now working with him. He goes, you're not going to believe this. He called to apologize. And then he said, and he goes, he's not such a bad guy after all. And we got that deal closed. And that guy was never mean to me. And you talk about a pivotal point. All of a sudden, I realized that I absolutely had what it took to be in this field. And my strength was me. And that forever after that, I never questioned the fact that I hadn't done these things before, but that I could do it and do it well.
It's a fantastic story. I love that. And how can people find you?
Just go to the StoneCreek Capital website, which is at www.stonecreekcapital.com. And I'm a very accessible Leo. Okay, my screen changed. I know but people can find me at my website. I'm very accessible, and as long as you reference the podcast, would love to connect with anybody who would want to connect with me.
Well, thank you. And thank you for joining today. It was great to have a chance to hear your thoughts.
Well, you promised it would be fun, and you delivered.
Well, thanks for listening for today's episode. And if you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and leave a review.